I've oftentimes referred to the kitchen as a Trojan horse. If you'll hold with me for a second, the metaphor being that the Greeks in the historic drama were right. Paris came in the middle of the night and stole another man's wife and split. So the Greeks had every reason to be aggrieved. And when they went to Troy, the Trojans were up on their ramparts terrified because there's this giant army dwarfing their resources. And they knew if they opened the gates it was all over. So they were terrified. But the siege lasted 10 years. And Agamemnon, the general, did everything right. It just didn't work. And it took Odysseus, in effect, to say, look, let's take the wood that we've been using to make fires, weapons, huts for 10 years. Let's try it a different way. Same ingredients, just different form. And the Trojans opened the gates. To me, that's a very fascinating metaphor because I think many of us in the nonprofit sector, we've been right. We're right, but we're right outside the gates. And the goal is to get inside the gates and not to push through, but to actually have the people inside the gates. The average American, who's a decent, kind person, but is terrified of the larger discussion, doesn't want to talk about mental health, doesn't want to talk about prison or race or wage or domestic violence or 1,000 other issues that each are not just going to magically disappear. They demand really tough conversations. So for me, it's essential that we've had this kind of unfair equation where nobody benefited. In effect, the Americans wrote checks and tossed them over the walls down to us and said, here, make it go away. Knock on the front door when you've made it disappear. And we took the checks, saying, okay, and never having the courage to say, time out. We can't make anything disappear. We can hold it steady. We can't fix homelessness. It's a cultural discussion we must have. So, again, for me and many people, we love what we do. There's a purity, there's a beauty, there's frankly a deep part of America that's wrapped up in this historic sense of our relationship to our neighbors. But we know it has limits, and I think now comes the brave times where we have to confront its limits, rejoice in what it can do, but be mature about what it can't ever achieve. And again, go forth into this frankly uncharted area in which we see an intersection between kind of purpose and profit. And I think that's what many of us who are doing social enterprise are intrigued by, is this hybrid in which we acknowledge the opportunity and the incentive that is profit, but we also really want to genuflect a little bit more to that notion of the purpose of it and how it can really benefit the larger society.